What else do we want to watch? I don't want to see that. I don't care about that. I know why Stalker 2 A Life matters. I'll listen to
There's
this.
a reason people still talk about.
I wrote a little article on Reddit. I remember when the game first came out because I started decompiling the files and looking through it and was appalled by what I saw with just the lacking of A Life. It was so bad. I thought it was funny though. I ended up getting featured on some magazine or something. They quoted me. They didn't even ask. They just posted the quote. It was Zeus Slayer is what my title was. I was like, oh my god. Okay, either way. It was just like, I don't know. The AI was 100%, the A Life was 100% not present. And there was just this bubble that was spawning enemies in a terrible. I mean, everyone knows about it now, but I remember when I first discovered it and I was freaking out because I'd put like 20 hours into the game. I was like, this is trash. This is so bad. And I was so excited for the game. Like I wanted it to be good so bad. And it was just terrible. And I don't know. I want it to be good. And I know there's a lot of updates that have come out and a lot of A Life updates, but I keep watching reviews and
When rival factions.
I don't know. It just everything that I'm seeing is not like what I want it to be or what it has the potential to be, although I don't really know. I don't know enough about Unreal Engine to comment on what I think potentially could or couldn't be in the game. I don't know what sort of like threading support they have for like engine optimization stuff, but like with how it was in the beginning, I was really concerned that like they would never be able to like I'm trying to think of how to phrase this correctly because like when you're coding there's a lot of like threading and interruption like optimization techniques you can implement to like have when you see a million things on screen, each individually doing their own thing and having their own goal. Like you can think of it like you have 10 threads in your CPU, right? Like you get a 10 core CPU, so you can have 10 threads with each dedicated CPUs, but then there's kind of a subset of logic that you can use where it's like there's like a thread scheduler is probably the best way to phrase it. And so it like schedules threads for execution and it'll like switch back and forth between different threads. So you can technically spin up like 1,000 threads and then it'll be handled by the cores of the CPU and like basically queued in and scheduled. And it all depends on really how the engine is set up. So I guess to quit dragging it out, I'm concerned that Unreal Engine won't be able to handle the A Life like background management of NPCs trying to accomplish whatever their goals are and essentially the NPC simulation. I'm worried that it won't be able to accomplish that, but I don't know a lot about Unreal Engine, so I'm feeling optimistic that it's the most used engine because Fortnite and real-time lighting. But we'll save those opinions for another time. Let's start watching this. Let's eat so I can get to games.
Unscripted, unpredictable, and emergent. That illusion GSC has given us is called A Life. A Life was the system that was supposed to make the zone more than just another video game full of scripted events. It was supposed to make it feel like its own organism, like they described it in Clear Sky. Dynamic, dangerous, and full of stories a player doesn't control. And here's another little thing about A Life. It's also one of the most overpromised and under-delivered systems in PC gaming history. GSC Game World first started hyping A Life all the way back in 2001, years before Shadow of Chernobyl even released. They pitched it as a revolutionary AI that would make their open world live and breathe. In reality, the system that shipped was far simpler. And while it created some amazing emergent moments, it never matched the hype until Stalker Anomaly came out. The massive fan-made mod pack that virtually fixed this system and made it realized into what we all know and love today. And now, with Stalker 2, it seems history has repeated itself. GSC didn't just promise A Life, they promised their upgraded A Life 2.0.
Yeah.
Once again, kind of like your girlfriend, players found something much smaller than advertised. The word
Okay, that's funny, but that is an understatement. Like when the game dropped, that is a huge understatement of what was there. What was there, I would argue, is worse than like if you were to play like Far Cry 4, when you go up and down those mountains and those eagles and animals start spawning all around you and stuff. Like I think that was handled better than how this was handled.
A-Life still sells the vision, it sells the dream, but the reality hasn't caught up. Today I'm going to tell you every single thing I've learned about A-Life over this week, and it took a ton of research, and this video is going to really get into the weeds of what A-Life is, where the term came from, how it worked in the original trilogy, how modders perfected it with Anomaly, why a free mod outdoes Stalker 2 right now, what's still missing, and why this system matters so much to the soul of the series. So sit back, relax, and let me take you on a journey through what A-Life truly is. To understand A-Life, we need to go back before Stalker even had that name. In 2001, GSC Game World was a small Ukrainian studio working on a prototype called Oblivion Lost. They had no reputation, no major publisher, and they needed something to stand out. At the time, shooters like Halo, Half-Life, and Medal of Honor were dominating. They had pretty strong AI, but their worlds were static. Nothing persisted beyond the level-designed scripts. GSC wanted to sell something a little bit different. That's when they started talking about a system they called A-Life. Way back at E3 2002, they pitched it as revolutionary. Stalkers with daily routines, mutants that hunted and ate, factions waging war over territories, whether you were there or not.
I want to go back to what you said about routines. Like, I feel like that is what, like, one of my favorite AI NPC features in video games, period. Like, and I think that's why, in my opinion, like Skyrim did so well, was because like the NPCs all had that routine and schedule that like made them feel so real, and like they were part of the community kind of because of their schedules. And like even though it was like a hindrance at times where like you couldn't go shopping, like it just made the world feel so much more immersive. And I have not seen that really in any other game. And I don't know, like I feel like Stalker kind of went in that direction, but just a little bit different, where instead of like a schedule, or theirs is more of like a random schedule than what I would call like a routine. Like they're still doing something like with an objective that they may or may not repeat, but there's like direction that they have, where in Skyrim it's like the routine, like wake up, go work, go shopping, go talk to NPC XYZ, and then go to bed. But
it sounded radical compared to the heavily scripted shooters of the
Getting
day.
distracted.
Now, I'll tell you the important part. At that point, A-Life was more of a marketing term than a real feature. The name itself was borrowed from academic research into artificial life simulations on computer science and biology. By slapping that label on their idea, GSC made their prototype sound advanced and futuristic, even though it was just a concept at the time. It worked. The pitch got attention from the press and helped land a publishing deal with THQ. From that moment on, A-Life became the brand identity
Daisy, get
of
out of here.
Stalker. But when Shadow of Chernobyl finally released in 2007, after years of cuts and delays, the grand simulation they promised wasn't really there. What players got instead was a stripped down version built on radius-based activation, kind of like what Stalker 2 does today. NPCs and mutants didn't persist across the whole zone. They only existed if you were close enough to turn them on. And yet, even in its reduced form, A-Life delivered something special. The zone felt unpredictable. You'd stumble into firefights that weren't scripted. Mutants would attack stalkers without being programmed to do so. The world felt like it had a pulse. So even though A-Life never matched the 2001 pitch, it still gave players something no other shooter had at the time. And because of that, the myth of A-Life stuck. Players took a marketing slogan and turned it into a legendary feature. And in a way, that's exactly what's happening again with Stalker 2. Big promises, a smaller reality, but enough potential that fans are holding on to the dream. In Shadow of Chernobyl, A-Life boiled down to a mix of activation bubbles and smart scripting. The zone was divided into sections. NPCs and mutants only existed if the player was near enough to activate them. Beyond that radius, they were essentially frozen. But inside...
No, it's worse than that. Like when it first dropped, they weren't even frozen. It was like they had set spawn points and would just spawn in, and you could go in, kill them, walk away like 10 feet. Like walk in, you know, here's your little dude, shoot them, they're dead, and then you walk away and like say the bubble's like here, right? As they walk away, boop, now they're like back. You can't see them though, like your view distance is 50 feet, and then you'd walk in, they'd be at 49 feet, and you'd see them pop back up. And it was so annoying because like you'd clear out a camp and then walk out and be like, oh wait, you know what? I dropped something here, you know, something like that. And you'd walk back and it's just all reset, and you're like, oh my God, this is awful.
That bubble, there was enough freedom to create unpredictability. Stalkers patrolled between camps, mutants roamed, and factions occasionally clashed. None of it was rigidly scripted, so you could walk into a firefight that wasn't staged just for you. It wasn't a grand ecosystem, but it felt like one, and that was enough to make players believe the zone had a life of its own. When Clear Sky launched in 2008, GSC tried to raise the stakes with faction wars. The idea that Duty, Freedom, Bandits, and others would fight for control across the zone, bases would change hands, and the player could tip the balance. In theory, this was the natural evolution of A-Life. In practice, it was pretty messy and got a little bit repetitive, having to run back and forth to defend certain areas you already liberated. The system was buggy, NPCs got stuck, and battles often failed to resolve properly. Instead of a dynamic war, it felt unstable and unpredictable in the wrong ways. Still, it was a bit of a step in the right direction conceptually. Clear Sky proved that GSC wasn't content with static patrols. They wanted A-Life to evolve into a system of systemic conflict, even if they couldn't quite make it work yet. By the time Call of Pripyat came out in 2009, GSC scaled back. Instead of pushing new features, they refined what already worked. A-Life in COP wasn't revolutionary, but it was stable. NPC patrols made sense, mutants acted consistently, and encounters felt believable. It was less ambitious than Clear Sky, but it avoided the chaos of broken faction wars.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to skip a little bit because I'm kind of done eating and I'm ready to play, but he's got some talking points here I want to hear. So let's skip to the Stalker 2 versus Anomaly.
Because right now, Anomaly, a free mod built by fans on a 20-year engine, delivers a more convincing A-Life than I feel Stalker 2 ever will. In Anomaly, factions really fight wars across the map. In Stalker 2, the entire world just feels kind of empty and boring. In Anomaly, the Stalkers scavenge, heal, and persist in the world. In Stalker 2, NPCs often spawn around you and despawn when you leave. In Anomaly, mutants have layers, migration, and feeding behaviors. In Stalker 2, they mostly exist as combat triggers and scripted events. In Anomaly, the economy shifts with the state of the zone. In Stalker 2, traders feel static, unaffected by the world. And most importantly, Anomaly remembers. Battles leave aftermaths. You'll find corpses, abandoned gear, and real evidence of the events that happened without you. In Stalker 2, the zone often resets, leaving absolutely no trace of what you've done. In my opinion, this is a brutal comparison. A fan-made mod built on ancient tech feels more alive than a modern AAA release built in Unreal Engine 5.
I feel confident AI could have built a better system.
GSC is once again behind its own community.
That's something I might do for content.
Stalker wasn't the only game trying to simulate something like a living ecosystem. But what makes A-Life distinct is how it balances.
She's trying to eat like my watch shimmers on the wall and she's trying to eat it.
Let's look at other games that approach similar ideas. Here's looking at Far Cry 2. Released in 2008, right after Stalker, it tried to make the African savannah feel alive with roaming patrols, checkpoint skirmishes, and fire that spread
I loved this game when it came out.
You drive down a road and suddenly run into a convoy you weren't expecting, or a grass fire would cut off your escape. It gave the impression of chaos, but it lacked
I know I don't have any Twitch viewers right now, but I if you are watching this on YouTube, I want comments. I want to know how many other people, because me and my friends lived for the custom Far Cry 2 maps on Xbox 360. Like there were these convoluted maze maps where you'd be like breaking things and climbing through walls and like glitching, like basically using glitches to like get to the end of these maps. And there were like these race tracks that were like borderline impossible, and you had to get out and like repair your vehicle every 10 seconds. I don't know. Somebody please, I hope that somebody sees this and can validate that was a core memory that they have of this game.
Distance. Patrols respond and the world reset constantly. It felt reactive in the moment, but when you zoomed out, it didn't have that long-term systemic consequences players associated with Stalker. There's this other game called Mountain Blade. From the very first game to Bannerlord, it's built around a world simulation where lords, armies, and caravans move independently. Wars unfold whether you're involved or not. Towns change hands, armies get wiped out, and it's far more persistent than Stalker. But it's also abstracted. You don't get that boots on the ground chaos of suddenly hearing gunfire out in the distance. Kenji is another extreme example. In Kenshi, every squad of NPCs exists in the world, living or dying based on hunger, injuries, or faction wars. Settlements can be destroyed or abandoned. The player is just another actor in a truly persistent simulation.
You know, I wonder, what do you think about the current state of Stalker 2, Kevin? What's your opinion? I never started it. He hasn't been getting the transcript. Hey, what do you think about the launch or state of Stalker 2 at launch, Kevin? Here he is.
Rough shape at release. A lot of bugs and tech hiccups. Kind of expected for how ambitious it is. The atmosphere still lands though. They nailed the look and tone even when the systems stumble.
You know what? I agree. I agree 100%. I technically it's a mess, but I really did enjoy like how it felt, and I think that's why it kept me for so long.
Downside to this game, even though I haven't played Kenshi myself, it sounds pretty fleshed out and that they got it working pretty nicely, but somebody in the comments section down below tell me how it really works and if there's anything actually disappointing about this simulation system that Kenshi has. So compared to these, Stalker's A-Life definitely sits much smaller. It never reached the systemic complexity of Kenshi or Dwarf Fortress, but it also wasn't just smoke and mirrors like Far Cry 2. Its power came from tone, limited simulation but layered with unpredictability, sound design, and atmosphere that made you believe the zone was alive. That's what made A-Life unique. It was about how unpredictability fed into immersion, and that's exactly what fans expect with Will. At this point, you may be wondering, why does this matter so much? Why is everybody obsessed with A-Life instead of just enjoying Stalker 2 as a shooter with a cool setting? The answer is simple. I could argue without A-Life, Stalker loses its identity. Plenty of shooters can give you tight gunplay, plenty of open worlds can give you big maps and scripted missions, but only Stalker promises a zone that feels unpredictable, hostile, and emergent. Without A-Life, the zone is just a stage set for you. With A-Life, it becomes a character, the most important character in the entire game. It's what makes your war stories different from mine. It's what makes the zone feel alive rather than a theme park. That's why players care so much. That's why the disappointment with Stalker 2's launch was so sharp, and that's why there's still hope. Because if A-Life finally delivers, it elevates the whole game from just another open world shooter to something irreplaceable for years on end. Back in 2001, GSC pitched A-Life as a groundbreaking simulation. What we got in 2007 was smaller, but it worked because it created atmosphere and unpredictability. Clear Sky stumbled, Call of Pripyat stabilized, and then the community took over with Anomaly. Fans proved the dream could actually work. Fast forward to 2024 and the cycle repeats. Stalker 2 launched with another overhyped A-Life system that didn't deliver. Patches are improving it, but the real hope is in the SDK and the modding community themselves. Because if history has taught us anything, it's that GSC talks the talk, but modders walk the walk. A-Life isn't just something that doesn't matter and is something everybody's just complaining about. It is the zone. Without it, Stalker 2 is just another shooter. With it, it becomes something no other series can even match. And that's why people care so much, because when A-Life finally works, Stalker stops being a game and starts feeling like a place. So I hope you kind of got my perspective on this, because it is important to me and many fans of the zone. This isn't something that shouldn't work because it didn't work well in the old games. This is something that should work even better. It's 2025, man. We gotta.
I'm curious if ChatGPT 5 could do a better job. Like, if I didn't require a terabyte of space to do like the whole SDK for Stalker, because that's what they say in their thing is you need like essentially it's I mean it's something like 800 gigs. I can't remember. It's basically a terabyte though, which I do not have. I want to know if ChatGPT 5 could write a better, A-Life or AI and emergent gameplay mechanics than what the developers did. Like, because not saying that AI is great and going to replace developers, I mean, really anytime soon, but like GPT-5 is good, and like, not to take away, like, I get that there was a lot going on for them, but, like, I'm sure they had a lot of pressure to ship it when they shouldn't have shipped it.